Sleeping Giant for me is it really brought back, well, kind of this thing. Living, summer at the cottage. It reminded me of growing up, partly because of what happens in Sleeping Giant. I don't want to spoil the plot, but there's when I was growing up, there was, at the end of, this was in Burlington, at the end of our street, there were hydro towers, and these two kids who were known as the punk kids of the neighborhood, these two kids climbed the hydro tower, and it didn't end well. And, it was a stupid teenage dare kind of thing, which is not very different from what goes on in terms of the bad behavior that takes place in Sleeping Giant. And, you recognize it just in the way that the people talk. It's that sort of, the phrasing that's very sort of working class Ontarian accent, the types of words they use, the terms, etc. It just sort of brought all that back and just seemed very, very familiar to me. One of the deep-rooted issues in Canadian cinema is that for many, many years, particularly at the National Film Board, we didn't actually shoot ourselves. We didn't photograph ourselves. The early years of the Film Board, from through the 40s and much of the 50s, or a large portion of the 50s, particularly outside of Quebec, the films, they bought other films and edited them and then claimed that they were Canadian. That's the first Canadian Oscar winner, Churchill's Island, is entirely edited Russian and British films. And Canada, I think, is mentioned 6 times, all as a supplier of raw materials for the British war effort. So often that's I think, Piers talks about that as well, and a number of people have, Jeff Pavir, I think Peter Harcourt and Peter Morris too, that shock of recognition when you actually see yourself on screen. I think for Piers it was specific to Yonge Street and going record shopping the way they do and going down the road. But sometimes that, when it's so close to home, I mean, that for me was very close to home, reminded me of a very specific and somewhat, essential incident. Les Demon sort of plays with that too in a way.
Yeah,
so.
it does, you're right.